Hello, welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds TV with Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. It is a Philadelphia Eagles NFL Draft edition, our second straight night. And yet again, the Eagles have blown it up for their fans, Adam. They've got them they had them very upset at first and then very excited at second. We'll talk about it. The Eagles, obviously, after an interesting Thursday night where they draft Jordan Davis and trade for A.J. Brown, they come back Friday night and they draft in the second round Cam Jurgens, a center from Nebraska. And of course, in the third round, they take national champion linebacker from Georgia, Nakobi Dean. I win. They took a linebacker in the third round, but not a safety, so we all win there. We'll get into that a little bit. What a very up and down night for Eagles fans, just seeing the reaction on social media, because they were very, very upset about Cam Jurgens, but then a lot happier about Nakobi Dean. In fact, if you just flipped it, if they had taken Nakobi Dean in the second round, Jurgens in the third, everybody would probably be fine with it. But your initial reaction to this day two haul?
I would say this with Nakobi Dean. By the way, the Eagles said after the draft, the third round, that he'll be able to participate in the rookie camp. I don't know how much with his pectoral injury, and he's not going to have surgery. So one of the things we talked to right after they took it, we asked, what's the story? They said it depends if he needs surgery or not. He said he probably would not play this season or come back very late if he needed it, but he doesn't need it. So we'll see, Geoff, when he'll be ready. But the good, in terms of being able to go full tilt, but there's a reason why he dropped. This is a pure value pick. Look, the guy was going to go. We were told late first, early second. What a great value. This probably was not their plan to draft a linebacker, but how can you pass? And here's the other thing. The fact that he's not having surgery is such a huge thing. That makes the value even better. So he should be playing this season at some point.
So we like to say this all the time with the draft. It's hard to judge the results. You judge the process. You can't judge the results right now because these guys could all be Hall of Famers or all be busts. Well, that's left to be seen. I like the process so far because I'm a big believer in best player available and staying true to the board. Now, I don't know what their board looks like right now, but when you take a center in the second round, but the team has other way more pressing needs, that signals to me that they took a guy that they had very highly ranked on their board and did not think about what they needed in the moment. However, we will talk about that a little more in a second, about positional value. And then, of course, in the third, they took a player who had first round talent, early second round, whatever, and is there, as you just mentioned, in the third round. So that felt like best player available also. And then it's the second time in 3 years they're taking a linebacker in the third round. So to me, process-wise, I think it seems to pass the smell test there as far as staying true to the board and maybe not doing something out of character. So that's my initial impression. But I want to break it down. I want to start off with Cam Jurgens because I think the natural – by the way, we were – not to pat ourselves on the back, but we said day two, interior offensive line is an area they absolutely want to upgrade. And some people say, Adam, well, why? I mean, you've got Jason Kelce for at least one more year, and you have Landon Dickerson at left guard about to enter year two. You have Nate Herbig coming back for a year, and then you have Jack Driscoll, who played well at right guard before getting injured. And you have Isaac Seumalo coming back. So to me, they added depth, and I understand why people will question it, but they added a very talented player. But he is you don't pick this guy in the second round to not be the eventual replacement from Jason Kelce. Anybody else I just mentioned is now a contingency plan, and who knows what their future is going to be.
Sure. Typically, though, when the Eagles draft interior linemen, it's rare for this player not to have the ability to play two positions. So Cam Jurgens, though, I asked a couple of line coaches I know doing the draft, and one said he wouldn't do it, and the other guy said if he had to, he probably could do it, but he doesn't really have it in his background to play guard. He's too small. Mm-hmm. So this is it. I mean, this is theoretically, even if we know Kelce's the starting center this year, so Jurgens will be backing him up. And the key here is this selection tells you, that gives you some answers here. We've known this. They don't want to move Dickerson to center if they could avoid it. and they're not. He's going to be a guard. We know that. And now you've got Seumalo coming back from yet another injury on the other side. We'll see what his role will be going forward. And obviously he could play center, and so could Dickerson. So the great thing is about this all, they're going to be talented and young on the offensive line. Once Kelsey retires, and you've got the only guy over 30 would be Lane Johnson, correct?
Kelsey and Johnson, right?
Right. When Kelsey retires, it just be Lane Johnson.
Oh, so right. Yeah.
They're going to be really young, which is a good thing, by the way. It's a good thing. They haven't been very young in several years, probably well over a decade.
Right. So unless Jason Kelsey gets hurt, it looks like this will be a redshirt season for Cam Jurgens. And at right guard, it feels like there might be a competition brewing between Isaac Seumalo and Jack Driscoll, with, I would think, Driscoll in the lead. And by the end of camp, if Seumalo hasn't somehow won that job, he's probably trade material.
Maybe. I know they love depth. They love depth. In fact, one team, we could put this out now. One team that, because it's in my notes here. One team that was, you have these trade calls. So one team that asked about Dillard said that they were really not entertaining anything serious about trading Dillard. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean tomorrow that they won't trade him. We're rounds 4 through 7. So this is your last shot, since we know they're not going to pick with fifth-year option. They can't, because Jordan Mailata's your left tackle. So at least they did with these calls that teams make for the draft. We know at least one team did ask about Dillard, but it didn't really go anywhere. And that team, I'm told, actually filled their left tackle role, so that takes them out of it. So we'll see what happens there with Dillard. And we were also told, we put this out on a previous show, that they may give him some snaps at guard during OTAs. We'll see if they do that. But remember, he's beefed up physically now. We know he's not, physical offensive lineman, so putting him at guard may not work if he's still not traded by the end of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much it now with the offensive line.
Yeah, so I respect the Eagles' commitment to the trenches, both on the offensive line and defensive line. I know a lot of people think that at times it can be overkill. So I want to, but they do have a track record of success here. So I want to address this. I do think you can simultaneously respect what the Eagles do as far as having an identity of building in the trenches and continuously doing it. We've seen the depth pay off for them. It just did last year. Think about how all the guys that got hurt last year, right? Seumalo got hurt. Driscoll got hurt. Lane Johnson had to miss 3 games, right? He had taken his leave with 3 games. And then Guy stepped in, and the offensive line was a strong point. But you can simultaneously admire that approach and commitment, but also question something that you and I have talked about on Inside the Birds for quite a while, is do they put so much positional value into offensive line that it clouds their ability to fairly evaluate cornerbacks, safeties, and linebackers? How is it time and time and time again, especially early in the draft, first 3 rounds, it always seems to be an offensive lineman over a safety, a corner, or a linebacker, right? So is it truly that the offensive lineman just all the time always happens to have a higher grade? And if so, is it because they favor that position? I question the self-scouting as an organization that they do to see if there's not clear indications of bias there that changes their or influences their board, I should say. Does that you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean. Right. It's not that. It's more about priority. It's not about. I just look at it this way. So Jurgens goes at 51, right, to the Eagles, the 19th pick overall in the second round. So was there a safety near them? No. There's one more. That's a guy that Cosell talked from Cincinnati. Briefly. 30.
Right.
So
right.
Down. That was not. So the question that you would have is, if you're the Eagles, 11 picks later. You've talked about priority a lot on our show about how they don't prioritize safety. At some point, you have to ask yourself this: is it overkill? That's the point you brought up earlier.
Right.
It is overkill. Do they need to do this? No, but in this particular case, they want to get Kelsey's replacement. Theoretically, that's what this kid should be. Cam Jurgens for Nebraska. You're doing a year in advance. The smart teams always think long, not short. It's the way you build your team. Roster building is always about the future. So they've done this now. So if you weigh it, it's Cook here. We have no idea what the grade they had on him. It's either Cook or Jurgens, based on what you're saying. It's clear to us that they've prioritized offensive linemen way more than safety. What else do they have to show you? They just don't do it.
And corner. I mean, yes, they drafted Sidney Jones in the second round and Rasul Douglas in the third, but that's now what? That's like 5 years ago.
17,
at this point. Yeah. So I loved what you just said. Smart teams think long-term, not short-term. But the Eagles have not thought short-term or long-term at those positions compared to offensive line. So one could argue that just as much as that they have thought long-term in offensive and defensive line.
Here's why. They're a front-to-back team. That's the way that they draft. They believe in offensive, defensive lines. They skip linebacker.
They weren't always that way, though. You know, their golden era of Andy Reid and and I know they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they did under Doug. But their golden era was you give me 2 offensive linemen, 2 pass rushers, and corners. Andy wanted corners. He took corners in the first and second round. He took Lito Shepherd. He took Sheldon Brown. You know, I mean, so again, I'm not trying to bang the Eagles. I'm trying to sort of get an understanding if there's so much positional bias that it clouds their evaluation. You want to have clean evaluation. From whatever position you're doing, you want your evaluation to be sound, clean, and fair.
I mean,
that's all.
I don't know if bias is the right word. I get what you mean. It's just like it's a disbelief that you need to take safeties to win in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. You and I, when we put our analyst hat on, that's part of what we do, which we should do. Obviously, if we want to be smart, we have to analyze the information and we talk to teams and run it by them. Most teams don't believe in this philosophy the Eagles have, just to be honest here.
Yeah.
Because the league has changed. You need guys who can cover. You need safeties that can move and make tackles and make plays and playmakers. That's the thing that the Eagles have lacked. Some of it's because of the scheme that they have that didn't produce enough turnovers. Mm-hmm. But they really lack those playmakers in the secondary. That's been a problem for them. Let's call it like it is.
It has. And again, 2 years ago, they led the NFL in sacks. But they weren't a great defense. They had no turnovers. Last year, they weren't as good from a sack standpoint, but it was basically the same crew except for Brandon Graham. But Javon Hargrave had a way better year than his first year. So you could say what you didn't get from Graham, you got from Hargrave, and they didn't cause turnovers. So maybe it's not bias, maybe it's prioritization. I mean, you could argue maybe those are interchangeable, but I just think it's a good conversation that we keep having year after year after year. Let's go to Nakobi. Go ahead.
Just real quick, you're going to get the Dean now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know this, but look, Dean fell at their laps, and they obviously had good enough medical information that will definitely say he's playing this season, and he's not having surgery. That's huge. Which to me, how the hell does a team, knowing this information, how the hell don't other teams steal him from the Eagles here? Good job by the Eagles. I mean, they took him. But I just can't understand. Everybody shares the same medical information. I mean, they have it. They all have the same medical information. It's just stunning to me that they let a team that doesn't value linebackers steal them. This is a steal. This kid's a stud. Let's get into it.
Well, it seems that way, and I'm sure we hope it is, or Eagles fans hope it is.
On paper, he's a stud.
On paper, really there's no question about his talent. None at all. He's a great player, and he's a playmaker. The Eagles have brought in some good linebackers in the past, like a Jordan Hicks or a Michael Kendricks, but this kid is more of a playmaker than those guys. I mean, he had 10.5 tackles for a loss. He had 2 interceptions, one that he returned for a touchdown. Talk about this past year. He had 6 sacks. I mean, he can do it all. But Adam, as soon as they drafted him, I reached out to as many people as I could, some personnel sources who all have the information to ask what's wrong with him and how bad is the pec. But Adam, here's one personnel source, AFC guy. He says, there's a pec tear. He didn't get surgery, but there's a lot of other stuff, including toes, ankles, soft tissue, and knee.
Oh, really?
This past year. So that was stuff I did not know about.
Okay.
Another guy says knee, shoulder, and some teams thought he may need back surgery also.
Wow.
Is there a body part I
Medically, that's bad.
haven't named yet between toe,
That's
foot,
bad.
ankle, body, back,
That's
knee? Yeah.
yeah. That's well. The linebackers are very susceptible to injury because all the traffic that they handle. That's been known in personnel circles that it's a high injury rate type of situation. True linebackers. We're not talking about stand up outside linebackers. We're talking true linebackers. They take a lot of traffic and a lot of physicality. So based on the stuff you just said, that does worry me. But from a talent standpoint, he's a stud. But he is smaller. In fact, one of the teams, the team that confirmed the injury to us during the draft, said that they did worry about his size. That it wasn't just the injury; they did worry about his size. But they said he was still. They had him somewhere in that late first, early second round range because he's a playmaker. Oh, super high test score for a defensive player. For whatever, I don't know what linebackers usually produce, but he's really smart, coachable, terrific football player, but he is small and susceptible to injury. And you've just confirmed that with the information you talked to personnel guys. So, okay, that may be another reason, in addition to what we know, that he dropped to the third round.
So it's like a catch-22 because if he's got a way more clean health status, then he's not even close to where the Eagles picked him at 83rd overall.
Sure.
But they did get him because of all that. So it's almost, you remember how we talked about Jordan Davis and the weight. It's sort of like a risk reward or a boom bust. If Jordan Davis keeps his weight to 330, which is what he said today he wants to be at, that's great. You got an awesome player. You got everything you want. You're good. If he doesn't and he has issues with it, then you worry, right? Same thing with Nakobi Dean. If he stays healthy, it's a steal. But his body's already pretty beat up for us, and he's undersized. And I think you'd have to work. I mean, look at what they've gone through with Davion Taylor, right? Haven't been able to keep him on the field either.
Yeah.
So, but let's assume for the sake of this conversation, he's healthy. What does the linebacker situation look like for the Philadelphia Eagles when they start the season? I have in my mind what I think, but I want to hear what you think.
I'm assuming it's going to be the same scheme. In philosophy, it's the same scheme.
Right.
Warner's saying there'll be some tweaks, but whether it's a 5-2, more of Zimmer stuff, we don't know yet. We just don't know. We were told some stuff in February last year. Most of it was true. There's some little differences. The other thing is, someone close to Gannon told me, part of why he didn't get to run what he wanted to really run all of it, or it's possible to percentage on it, but not quite what he wanted, is because the personnel just didn't match it. They needed certain players to come in here. And Jordan Davis, as you pointed out last spring, they really needed some snaps at nose or different the way they shade him. And this kid obviously is massive, so that'll help them against the run. So there are going to be some changes. And Dean's a chase and run and hit and diagnose. And this is interesting now, because you have this layer of the injury stuff that you just put out there. It does worry me a little bit, but the guy that I spoke to did not mention these. I'm sure you're right from your sources, but he didn't mention that. The guy said the pectoral injury is the reason why he dropped out of the top 40, where he would have gone. Right. And then now the other stuff. Now you wonder if all the stuff that you listed, because the Eagles have a very good, their revised strength and conditioning staff and medical staff. The reason why their injuries are down is because they brought the guy in, Ted Rath from the Rams, who's excellent.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But
I mean, you could argue that they took a big risk on Landon Dickerson with his medical history, and he at least made it through his first year and looked really good and has a promising future. So if they can do the same with Nakobi Dean, it becomes even more of an advantage for him. As far as personnel standpoint, here's what I would suspect. It's all until they get out there, who knows? But I think they're more now opponent specific. So, and down and distance specific. I would think that if they're facing a team that likes to pass a lot, like most teams, and they're going to be in the nickel right away, you're looking at Nakobi Dean and Kaiser White as your nickel linebackers, which was like your starting linebackers, right? If you're playing a team that's going to come out, try to establish the run like the Seahawks, 2 tight ends, a little bit, something like that, then you're probably starting off with TJ Edwards and either Nakobi Dean or Kaiser White or Davion. Probably Nakobi Dean. If he's that good, he's going to play. He's a 3-down linebacker. So if you're in dime, though, I wonder if that maybe is where you use Davion Taylor, or does Davion struggle to make the team now? I don't know.
Well, again, if he's we can move this. We're going to do a roster review show. It's one of our most popular offseason shows. We'll do that soon.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, you're looking at the guys who should make the team: Kaiser White, Edwards, Reddick is technically a linebacker. That's 3. Davion Taylor's 4. Nakobi Dean's 5. That's Sean Bradley's only a special teamer, so you have to count him as a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of looking in would be Patrick Johnson and Jacoby Stevens right now, I would think.
Yeah, probably. That makes a lot of sense. All right, that'll be interesting stuff. Want to put a bow on some of the things from Jordan Davis because we've gotten some more intel since last night's show.
Okay.
Spoke to a couple of teams about where they had Jordan Davis, right? And we already said yesterday that teams did not seem to be as scared of the lack of pass rush downs at Georgia, more so than the weight issues. And we already went through that. But I spoke to 3 teams. 2 of them had Jordan Davis ranked on their board, right where the Eagles went, right in that 13 area. But one team that I spoke to from the AFC had Jordan Davis as a top 5 player.
Really?
Top 5 on their board.
How? What? How? Why? What are the actual What did they? Where did they see him?
Tremendous athleticism. This team runs a 3-4, so he has obviously 3-4 nose tackle traits. But I want to get into that in a second because he's really more multiple than people think. Watched a little tape on him today just when I had a chance. But yeah, so to put a bow on that, the Eagles didn't do anything wrong. They didn't, they got him in a place where a lot of teams, or at least teams I spoke to, had him, and then one team even had him even higher. So that's good. But at Georgia, Adam, he was not a typical what you see. A lot of people think because he's built like a nose tackle that he's just going to line up over centers and eat up 2 blockers. But if you watch the way Georgia's line played, they do a lot of post snap movement. So you can see the entire line shift, and he has the athleticism to go from one gap to another. Right. They do twisting, they do stunting, which is usually a smaller, defensive lineman type thing, not necessarily a guy who weighs 350 or 360, but he was doing it and doing it well. And he lines up a lot of times in B gaps, not just the A gap player. He's not just he is really not he is like a 3 technique in a 0 techniques body, or in a nose tackle's body. He's like what Fletcher Cox is, but in the body of Haloti Ngata. Okay. Or like even going back to like Tony Siragusa or something like that.
Oh, Goose.
And that's pretty freaking rare, to be honest with you. I mean, football is a game where you kind of get used to certain guys at certain sizes being capable of doing certain things. But to watch this guy be able to cut across guards and even inside or scrape across a center's face and do all this athletic stuff that we're used to seeing like Aaron Donald do, right? Not someone who's 360 pounds. Adam, this is why I think Jonathan Gannon will be able to go back to doing what he wanted to do at the first half of last year. When you have a guy who can do what I just described, it becomes mathematics now, right? He wants to only have 6 in the box. He tried to do that last year and got run all over, right? Then he had to bring the safety down. Now with Jordan Davis, if Jordan Davis can be an excellent run stuffer and do the other stuff too, he can go back to playing 2 deep coverages, 2 deep safeties, stop the run with 6, and then protect that opposite corner now. The guy who was Steven Nelson last year, whoever's opposite Darius Slay may have extra protection now if they can play more 2 deep coverages.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's some situations now with you add Jordan Davis in there that you'll be able to do more if he's ready to go. Now again,
if he can go, right.
Cox and Hargrave, your starters. You got Milton Williams. And by the way, they only have 2 draft picks left. You can't expect, if they keep them or they don't add any, if they have a 5 and a 7, so these guys might not even make the team. So they have not picked up that pass rusher in terms of a defensive end yet. So it's going to be interesting to see if you add Davis here. And we have no idea how much he's going to play. You mentioned it. He's got to get in shape first. Once he does, how they're going to use him on the interior. We're going to learn a lot more about this. They just added the guy. It's a little bit more complicated because he runs the way Gannon runs his defense. He runs a blend of Zimmer. He's not running full Zimmer. He's running a lot of the coverages are the same way, but the blitz packages are not the same. That's he doesn't run double A gap like Zimmer does or did.
Right.
And some of the other blitz packages were told. We actually asked a coach who worked for Zimmer, who unfortunately lost his job. Said that he's watched Philly's tape, but he said it's not. He said the coverages are very close, but he said that blitzes are not. Blitz packages are not. So you just wonder. You add Davis who could help against the run if he's got any pass rush whenever he gets that part of his game up to snuff. You just wonder if there's some different things he could do because you're outlining what that one AFC team told you. That's when you're talking top 5, that's special.
Yeah.
So they obviously see something way more than he did at Georgia. They saw some tremendous upside. I just wonder if he could be a good pass rusher, not just a run guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, that'll probably be something that we question more in year 2 of his career and 3 after Cox is gone, after Graham is gone, and that. But I do think for a next year impact, Jonathan Gannon's ability to play a lot more coverage by having that safety not have to be in the box is going to be a huge advantage, and also keeping everything in front, which he likes to do. Now you got 2 guys deep, 2 show coverages. If they try to run on me, I can stop it with 6. And if they try to play action pass on me, which killed me in the second half of the year, I can keep everything in front of me. So it'll be pretty good if they can get him on the field doing just what he's expected to do from kind of a run stopping standpoint and a space eating standpoint. All right, before we get out of here, why don't we? By the way, second straight year that the Eagles have drafted 2 players from a national championship team. Pretty interesting, right?
Amazing. You got the D tackle on the guy who cleans him up when he's playing against the run for Dean. It's really cool. I was hoping you'd bring that up. It's like
they're finally shopping in the right aisle.
It's just I'm just glad they took a linebacker. We know that like safety. It's like we can't do a safety, and Dean was such a great value. As I said at the top of this thing, it's just amazing to me. They have this information. Teams should have basically the same information. Yet they're the team of all teams that took them. Good for them.
Right. By the way, the freaking Ravens, talk about safety, right? I mean, they had already signed Marcus Williams. Then they get Kyle Hamilton fall into their lap. Then they trade out and trade back and wind up with Tyler Lindenbaugh, a perfect player for them. And then in round 2, they just sit there and let David Ajabo fall right to them. And in 2 years, they'll have Owe and Ajabo and whatever other defensive lineman they'll be able to throw at you.
They got Travis Jones in the 3rd.
And then Travis Jones in the 3rd.
Who blew it up the Senior Bowl. Now, that's a pretty – now, Ajabo, he's not going to contribute much, if at all, this season. But for the future, having Hamilton, Linderbaum will be their center for the future. Ajabo will be a stand-up outside linebacker for the future. Travis Jones, one of their down linemen, they're already deep there.
Yep.
They have some older guys. Derek Wolf is one of them. But, man, to give Eric DeCosta credit, who learned from the great Ozzie Newsome, his mentor, and Joe Douglas's mentor. And, by the way, Joe Douglas, best draft of any team. Eagles have done well, but I hate to say perfect. It's hard to beat what they did. It's just I don't know what to say. I mean, it's –
And what organization did he cut his teeth in?
Baltimore, I know, but
exactly,
look at this.
The Ravens.
Saucy at 1, right? I mean, they're 4th overall. Who I believe they might have had. They might have had him as the number 1 player for the draft. But Garrett Wilson, who everybody loved, Jermaine Johnson, who's a value. We know about the character stuff, but he's not a bad kid. Brees Hall, I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is one of my buddies who's an offensive coach told me this is the next Jonathan Taylor. Taylor's more explosive, but in terms of size and ability. And Jeremy Ruckert, who's a good tight end, who they didn't really need a tight end because they signed to, but he's a good football player out of Ohio State. This is just execution at its finest. In the first 3 rounds, what a great job Joe D did.
Definitely. All right, what do we look for tomorrow? With the Eagles right now only have picks in the 5th and the 7th rounds.
Correct.
Right? No.
4th and 7th.
6, right? Or no, 5th and 7th, right? No
5
4
and 7. Yeah, they got 11th pick overall in the 5th, 154, which they got from Washington. And the 7th round pick is 16th overall, 237 from New Orleans. Oh, what could it be? I mean, geez.
I mean, we talked about the potential of them getting a running back and a quarterback. So maybe the kid from Pierre Strong from I think South Dakota State, or maybe Sincere McCormick from UTSA as far as running backs go. Hey, look, the cornerback Marcus Jones is still out there. Now, I don't know if he'll be out there by the 5th. But he's out there.
I mean, we just before we get out of here, the top cornerbacks are still out there. Cosell's guy, Marcus Jones, went in the third, which is where we pegged him. You know who's out there? The kid has got ability. Zion McCollum from Sam Houston State. I know he's a sort of an upside guy. Tariq Woolen, who's a height, weight, speed guy, a workout guy. There's some upside guys out there.
Charlie Kolar, the tight end.
Oh, he's good. Yeah, I know Cosell loves him. That would be a great value. They need a number 2 tight end. They need to upgrade. Stoll's a good story, but they can upgrade over him. That's a good one, man. That's a good call by you.
Yep.
But man, what are they well, I'm sorry.
And some quarterbacks are still out there.
Let's see.
Sam Howell is still out there, is he not?
Sam Howell would be a good value. Yeah, Strong with his medical.
Yep.
When I say medical, just so people understand, it could be medical. Medical is anything injury-wise or could be respiratory, could be anything. Medical is, i.e., injury. That's what
right.
NFL.
It also, and also to clarify, it doesn't mean always mean current. It could mean past. It's
yes,
like, yeah,
pre-existing. Yes,
right.
That's what medical is. So, you know who's out there now? I don't know if the Eagles like him. Is Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky? Mr. Numbers,
Western Kentucky. Yeah,
major numbers.
All right, so people keep asking us about Honey Badger. Does all this mean they're going to sign the Honey Badger? I still think that's a money issue. It
has been from day one.
It's been from day one, and I don't know if it changes now. And remember, they just gave a huge contract to AJ Brown, so just keep that in mind when you're thinking: are the Eagles going to now meet Honey Badger's demands? So,
well, I would say this: he and Tom Condon, his agent, have to make a decision. So any team that was talking to fill that safety role in the first 2 rounds probably will not be interested in him. And then teams like the Eagles and like 3 or 4 others who are still in it, now Condon has leverage. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The Eagles are they're in okay cap shape. Do they need to do anything at safety? I would argue this. We've talked about Marcus Epps now for a year and a half. The guy, good football player. Right now, he'd be a starter opposite Harris. They need one more guy. Do they need to spend a lot of money? No, they don't need to do that. Now, if he comes in 1 year, $5 million, let's go. Okay, with the Honey Badger, let's go. But $10 million or more, no. Why would they do that?
Yeah. That's a good question. Although a lot of Eagles fans would like to see it, so we'll see what happens.
This isn't fantasy football, folks.
Yeah. All right. That's been good stuff. I like that wrap up there. Cam Jurgens, Nakobi Dean, AJ Brown, and Jordan Davis. It's been quite a 2 days for the Philadelphia Eagles so far, and we'll see what they do on Saturday in day 3. For Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching a special edition of Inside the Birds TV.